I came here and I heard Rumi speaking. I thought he was the one on the podium for a political rally, but this is indeed a very serious event. Rumi and I go way back. Don't mind how he talks to me. We used to sing together, believe it or not. Ladies and gentlemen, I intend to address this issue from 4 areas. From the engineering standpoint, and from the industry standards, also from a legislative perspective in terms of our laws that are in place, also in regards to the remediation, which means the cleanup exercise, some of which Rumi touched on, and also to analyze the actual incident that occurred. First of all, there are legislative and industry standards that should be kept to assist in preventing events like this from happening. For instance, the design standards, the design of the pipes being used, the tanks being used, the critical safety devices, because there are safety devices. For instance, if there's a spill, that will shut off everything, etc. These are essential, and the standards must be appropriate for the location. For instance, the location at Marathon is a critical location and is deemed a high-risk site. Why? Because it is next to Table Bahamas, which has a high volume of customers that come in and out. It's near a mall, it's near a food store, it's near also a church. So it's deemed high risk. And schools. That's in the writing there. It's right there. All right. In addition to that, the equipment selected must be site-specific and must address the issues and the risks being faced. And thirdly, there must be secondary containment. In other words, if there's a leaking pipe, there must be a second barrier to prevent it from leaking into the environment. And fourth of all, which is of great concern to me, is something called daily inventory reconciliation. In other words, the service station operator must calculate how much inventory you got, how much storage, how much is sold, etc., and balance it out. That must be done daily. Now, I'm showing you this to give you a backdrop for when I begin to describe what needs to be done. Now, there are double wall systems that are industry standards. In other words, the tanks nowadays have 2 walls. Inside generally is sometimes it's 2 fiberglass layers, or in this example I'm showing, where the interior is a steel tank, then you have an open space, and then you have fiberglass tank on the outside. That is now being used by many of the stations, and it is being used throughout New Providence. The space in the middle is used to determine whether there's a leak, whether there's water coming in, and you'll see water in the interstitial space, or whether the tank is leaking. Now, you also have the same type of second containment in pipes. So that if the pipe leaks, then it goes into an outer pipe and drains into a catchment area. Now, that's just a diagram of what I explained with the tanks that go on right there. Now, this is also important because at this site you have a leak detection system. This is a system that is used to monitor the inventory in the plant at the service station and also monitor whether there are leaks all around. This is a critical safety device. Now, we'll move on to the next one for me later time. Now, why did this happen? First of all of the elements that I just described to you failed. All of them. From the design, let's look at the pipes. You didn't have double wall containment at the pipe. You would have a metal pipe and not the high density or what you call rubber pipe that's now used in the modern service stations. The critical safety devices, emergency shut-off, tank vents. They mentioned in the report about how people were smelling fuel before the actual spill occurred. Vents weren't working properly. Third, standards appropriate for the location. Remember I talked about the associated risk, Cable Bahamas, Solomon's, Marathon Mall, school, etc. Because of that additional risk, you must have higher standards in terms of your design to prevent a leak. Now, in terms of equipment selection, leak detection system. Was the leak detection system working? sanitary containment, no double wall, no sumps. Sumps are a container that is under the dispenser. Where the leak occurred, it went straight into the ground. They're usually sumps that catch it. For instance, what you call the pump. Right under that, they would have a catchment that would catch any fuel that spills. That was not obviously in place. So that's a design standard that failed. Now, the fourth one that failed is the daily inventory reconciliation. Now that's supposed to be done daily. Balance it off. Go to the next sheet and I can show you something. Now, in the industry, there's a formula. What you receive plus what you have open in your tank, what you opened up that morning with, minus your sales for that day, and what you close at the end of the day must be less than 0.5% of your sales. Now, if that is okay, you move on to the next day, you're sitting fine. But let's go on to the next one. Let's see what happened here at this site. The leak was reported January 19th. Leak began, according to the report, November 25th. Leak repair, January 21. Days between the leak start and the repair is 58 days. Now, if, according to the report, they lost 24,000 gallons total from that station, divide that by 58 days, and they were losing 414 gallons a day, which is equal to about $2,000 a day. Now, what business could sustain losing $2,000 a day? And no one bought it. Now, let's assume something with this service station. If their standard is that they must have 0.5%, that means the maximum loss that they should have is about 25 gallons a day. In this case, it's 17 times the normal or acceptable rate. Why was this allowed to happen for 58 days? Let's move on. The remediation. After a petroleum product release has occurred, it is critical that appropriate action is taken immediately. Now, I won't point to the report. All of these are clips from the report. Now, the report said right after the leak, there were 4 contained products with 7 borings were advanced, 4 contained products over 1 foot thick. Subsequent investigation activities included additional borings to evaluate. Now, fuel 1 foot thick. Now, think about that. Now, what happened between January and November? In March, May, and October, the groundwater samples were collected and the monitoring wells both on and off the site. The results of the sampling efforts are reported in the December report. Now, this is important because one has to evaluate how much sampling was done off the site. In May, a survey of the number of the locations of private wells was conducted within 200-meter radius of the site. In other words, only within 600 feet. Remember